sexual harassment is going to be added to the whistleblowing list. So you can use whistleblowing as a protection now of statutory rights, health and safety, those type of things, public interest. Sexual harassment is going to be added, and it's going to be if it has occurred, if it is occurring, or if it could occur. The thing with whistleblowing, which is why when we hear that, we're like, okay, stop whatever you're doing. Let's just step back and see what we need to do. Because if they claim whistleblowing at tribunal, you have to pay them their full salary until it gets decided at tribunal, and you never get that money back. So if it takes 3 years to get there, you're paying them for 3 years. So this is why when whistleblowing gets mentioned and the fact that it's been added, this is a big thing. The other thing is third-party harassment for any of the protected characteristics, but also sexual harassment will be the legal liability of the employer next October. In a golf club, but in a physio, if one of your clients assaults one of your masseuses, physios, then you are liable for that, and you have to show you've done everything you can to protect them. A lot of employers are saying, well, I can't do anything. You can do quite a lot, because you are absolutely liable for Bob, who gets a bit handsy after a few pints. You need to train all your staff on sexual harassment. That's that training that we've sent through. You really need to get them to watch that BBC drama on sexual harassment. They do it so well, and it's when you see Douglas has cancelled episode 3, you go, that is why women cannot easily disengage. And there are a lot of men who present as the guy does in episode 3. I'm not trying to spoil it for you, because obviously you're going to watch it right away. But it's just, you need to make sure that all the staff are trained, all the officers of the club are trained, that they take it seriously, that if there is an issue, it gets dealt with, and it isn't just said, oh, Bob, just keep out of his way, I'll have a quiet word. No. You need to be working on suspension for a minimum of 6 months, and ideally expulsion if it is sexual harassment. Okay? And you need to do that, because then that shows you've taken it seriously and you have taken action, and that is the consequence that every other member says, ooh, I'm not going to touch them because Bob got kicked out. I'm just not going to do that. Excellent, that's what we want. You don't touch, and you shouldn't be saying anything about, oh, your breasts look really nice in that top. No. But it is that training. You will need to make sure your staff have all the training so that they can also spot it. I'm going to say it's a good thing to be able to spot these things and not go, oh, well, that's just what happens. No, that is actually abuse. That needs to stop now. 400 tips a month, that's a lot. That is highly unlikely to be all genuine. Talking to a new client, and he said, right, I've got a bar manager, been there for 22 years, and there's problems. Obviously there's problems, because if you have somebody who's been there for 22 years, usually they've never been managed. It's not really their fault. They've never had any feedback, okay? And he said, yeah, but she's really popular. I'm like, how is she popular? Well, she gets £400 a month in tips. I'm like, okay, that's quite specific. How do you know that? Well, on the till, you can add £1 when the members say, oh, and one for yourself. You press the tip button, which adds £1 to their bill. And I'm like, okay, so you're saying that 400 of your 800 members are giving her a tip every month? He's like, yeah. I'm like, no, I don't think so. I think you'll find that's a red flag, and that because it's only £1, it gets pressed arbitrarily so that people get more money. Because I think she's about 31,000. I'm like, full time. And I'm like, that's not a lot if you've been there 22 years. And so she's probably topping it up. And he's like, well, no, she's very light. I'm like, 400 tips a month? That's a lot. That is a lot of tips. That is highly unlikely to be all genuine. And people aren't going to notice an extra £1 here or there on their bill. They're just going to go, oh, yeah, it must have been, I thought it was 11, but it's 12. It's fine. It's no big deal. So we do have to deal with that, but it's just like, it's always when you have these conversations and it's just an aside, oh yes, and she gets £400 in tips a month. We need to stop that right now, because that will probably feed into the conversation that we usually have, which is, wouldn't you like some tax-free money to leave? Thank you very much.
We continue to get regular questions when it comes to 0-hour employees. So first of all, 0-hour employees, are employees with employee rights. So if you have people who you call by the very old school name of casuals, that is not legal anymore. You can't be doing that. You can't be having people that you just pay cash in hand, or just, I don't know, they come to work when you tell them to and you pay them, but that is illegal. You can't do that anymore. What are the ins and outs of a 0-hour contract? The one thing that make it really different to anything else, and is why we want to use it, is the flexibility of not having to give hours. Say, that's what it says on the tin. 0 hours guaranteed, right? But the bit that a lot of our clients forget is that's a two-way street. That's why this contract is also appealing to a lot of employees. Because what this means is that you have no obligation to give them hours or offer them work. They have no obligation to accept your work, because realistically, they might already be working somewhere else on that day. Or they might have a period of time when they're not working. They might not work during summer school holidays, for example. The important way to think about this is you need to check availability. That's important with 0-hour staff, and that is the bit that a lot of our clients are missing. Checking availability. So what you're doing is sending out a rota, and then they're getting pushback, and they're getting like, oh, I'm not available on that day. Oh, I can't do that day. Oh, I'm not working right now. And then they get frustrated with these employees. And that's when I get these conversations like, we want to get rid of them because they never take in shifts, blah, blah, blah. They're not available for work. When actually a better way to handle and manage this is to check availability on a regular basis and have a way in which you do that. For example, on a weekly basis, or, a few days before you do the rota, something should be sent out to all your 0-hour staff to say, I'm doing the rota next Monday. Let me know now what your availability is for the next month. It avoids all of that frustration for the employer and kind of lack of engagement from the employee. The other things to remember, holiday. Now, holiday can be managed in a number of different ways for 0-hour employees, but the majority of our clients are paying out holiday for 0-hour employees on a monthly basis using the 12.07% method. Really simple. Hours worked times 12.07%. You add that amount that you get there is what they would have accrued in holiday. You add the accrued holiday to their pay. You pay them out for it on a monthly basis. What that means is when they want to take holiday, all they do is tell you they are not available for work. They don't have to book holiday. They don't have to request holiday. They don't have to have holiday available in order to take holiday. They have already accrued and been paid for their holiday, and their contract gives them the right to be available for work or not be available for work. That's holiday. So in terms of rest breaks, this is the other one where we don't see the question so much anymore, but we used to see this question all the time. Do we pay 0-hour people for their rest breaks? Yes, you do. In short, yes, you do. If you pay other staff for their rest breaks, then you pay 0-hour staff. If you don't pay your other staff, then you don't pay your 0-hour staff. They are eligible for maternity. They are eligible for sick pay. Once the shift is accepted by a 0-hour employee, or once a 0-hour employee has confirmed to you that they're available and they can do that shift, the rules then start to apply to that. If they are then a no-show for that shift, they'll be disciplined for that. If they are late for that shift, they'll be disciplined for that. They can't just tell you the day before, oh, I can't no longer do that shift. No. You've accepted the shift, but in the same way, they are then eligible for sick pay. So if they called in sick on that day for the shift that they had accepted, they would be eligible for sick pay if it applies. And the same goes for time off for dependents. If Susie calls in the morning at 7 o'clock and says, I can't do my 9 o'clock start shift today because my child is sick and I couldn't drop her off at the nursery, that is time off for dependents, and they are entitled to that just like any other employee. They have protection from unfair dismissal after 2 years, just like any other person. And they have the right to work elsewhere. So your part-time and your full-time employees, there's an other work clause in your contract. That means that employees have to ask you for permission to take a second job. 0-hour employees, it is assumed that they have more than one 0-hour job. Employees think they are entitled to time and a half or double time. There is no law that requires you to pay a penny extra for working a bank holiday. Now, your contracts and your policies might require you to do that because that's what they say, or because that's what you have done for hundreds and hundreds of years and not written it down anywhere. In that case, yes, you do. But if you don't have it written down anywhere and it is not normally paid, and employees are coming around to you this time of the year, especially the ones who don't often work a bank holiday, and they're going, oh, we're working this bank holiday and that bank holiday and we need to get paid extra. No, they don't. The other thing is, if your holiday entitlements say 28 days, including bank holidays, that really means for the employer that bank holidays is a normal working day, except employers booked it off. They are not entitled to have it off and opt into working. They are working it and they book it off if they want to have it off. And that can be approved or declined like any other holiday. That is the benefit, one of the benefits of stating it in that manner for the employers. For the employee, the benefit is that they get to use 28 days wherever they like, whether a bank holiday is involved or not. If you want to make changes to your contract, how do you do that? I have seen absolutely horrific attempts at doing this, where managers have basically just told staff, oh, this is now changed, or this is now changed, or this is now changed, or written some heavy-handed letter that some 82-year-old ex-businessman who is on your board has drafted. All wrong. Please stop doing that. One of the favorite lines we hear at the moment is, yes, but the contract says we can make changes to the terms and conditions. It does. But those are for very minor changes only. So I'll explain to you what kind of changes we're talking about. We're talking about things like changing the pay rate. Okay, so maybe you pay every 2 weeks and you're going to move to paying monthly. There's still a little bit of a process. You can't just write to them and being like, so we know it's like the 25th of the month, but hey, from next month, we're paying you at the end of the month. Because then you're going to have a lot of people in 2 weeks' time who are going to be out of pocket, because that's not how their budgets work. Or you want to change the way your holiday works. For example, maybe you still have the old school way of holiday that is split into 20 days holiday, 8 days bank holidays. And actually, you've spoken to one of us and we've gone, hey, whoa, that's stupid. So you now want to change to 28 days, inclusive of bank holidays. Those are the kind of changes, the minor changes that you can make without consultation, at the right time, with the right amount of notice, and for God's sake, in the right tone. Please, we are not talking about changes like changing the amount of holiday, changing the amount of sick pay you pay, worse off. It is absolutely not for changing pay, working hours and structures. The reason for that is because the changes you are making impact on the other employees. So suddenly, if you've just promoted one person, but you've changed 2 other people's jobs, you've actually impacted on the entire team and how they operate and who they report to, and maybe what even their tasks and duties are. So you can't just make changes like that. The easiest, the quickest, and the safest way to do it is to do it through a restructure. It takes around 3 weeks. But we can literally tell you step by step what to do, when to do it. We have the letters, we have the paperwork, we have the pictures, we have everything. The other thing if you are changing terms and conditions is if you're changing things like benefits and you're suddenly going, oh, I can't pay 6 months sick pay anymore, or I'm changing the overtime. Those things require consultation. In the nicest possible way, you can do it all by the book. And at the end of the day, you'll have 2 out of 5 employees going, no, I won't sign that. And then you can't do it. So we will often still suggest that you do a restructure in order to achieve your change in terms and conditions. We always look at it and go, why would an employee agree to this? Just because you're telling them to, just because you're asking them to, no on both counts. So it's usually a 30-day consultation, and that is usually best done if you are either buying them out of something, so you're giving them money for the thing you're taking away from them. The other way to do it is to do it tit for tat, to say, I'm taking this, but I'm giving that. The sick pay, we're not going to pay you 3 months full pay anymore. The sick pay is now going to be 28 days, but actually we're going to give everyone 3 days extra holiday. Most employees will go, okay, quite like 3 days extra holiday. Still buying them out, but not with money necessarily. You're buying them out by giving them something in return. Just come and talk to us, say, I want to change this. What's the best way to do it? And we will give you the best advice we can. A completely frustrated and unreasonable response, and frankly, illegal. It is really important when you have an incident or a series of incidents with employees that we do not react in anger. This is business, and all you really should do is act according to what the law requires you to do. I've got 3 examples where we had employee situations that was handled badly. We have an employee who has a history of being late. And by late, I don't mean 5 or 10 minutes late. I mean 90 minutes late. Or he also has quite poor attendance. So he's become unreliable. He's had gone through disciplinary process and there's been a warning. And since the warning, he's not been late and he's not been absent without following the correct absence reporting procedure. And we're about 2 months down the line, and then that he doesn't turn up one morning. 2 minutes before the start of his shift, he sent a message in to say that he won't be coming in today. And here is where the manager should just have said, thank you for letting us know. This isn't really a reasonable amount of time before the start of your shift, but we'll catch up on this when you're back. That's what he should have said. What he said is, we are understaffed, you need to come in. And the employee replied with, I'm sorry, I actually can't come in. I cannot leave my toilet. I'm sure we've all been there when you think I cannot leave my house safely. This is what I mean by that was a very unreasonable response from that employer. It was an angry and unreasonable response to tell a sick employee, I don't care that you're sick. The fact that you don't have enough staff to staff a business area is not the employee's problem, it's the employer's problem. Another one is an employee who hadn't worked there very long. She has a son with special needs. The son was not accepted in the school where he was needing to be placed. The mum had a bit of a breakdown in terms of stress and anxiety. She wrote in to say she can't come to work. She's seeing her doctor. She got signed off sick, sent in a sick note. And then at the end of that sick note after a week said, look, I'm still really stressed. I can't stop crying. I'm so worried about this. I don't know what I'm going to do. The employer's response to me was, the work is piling up. This is going to be a regular occurrence because of her son's special needs. We need to fire her. A completely frustrated and unreasonable response, and frankly, illegal. Discrimination on many levels. Just acting out of anger in the moment, in frustration, could have made that situation much worse. Luckily, I was able to say, hold on a minute, X, Y, and Z, please think about this. Keep in mind, there were better business options. The better business option was maybe a welfare conversation to understand how long she might be off and so on, and distributing that work in a different way. And the last one was an employee had gone off sick during a grievance process. They needed some minor surgery and they requested for this process to be paused. And then it was paused so long everyone forgot it was happening. The employee, there was then a welfare meeting to bring this employee back to work. And the employee said, oh, but I can't come back to work because I don't feel safe to come back to work. I feel intimidated and pushed into it, blah, blah, blah. And the employer's response to me was, I need to fire him, because he was insisting that a process that had sort of slowed down and paused and then got a little bit forgotten about by everyone needed to finish before he was willing to come back to work. So now we've got a guy with long service, you haven't followed a process, and he's got a protected characteristic, and you just want to fire him because you're angry and annoyed. In that moment when you are so frustrated and so angry about the current situation, it is important to either contact us and say, I'm so angry about this, I want to do X, Y, and Z, in which case I will talk you down and I will bring you back to what is legally okay and what you can and can't do. Or take a moment, and I haven't got a nice way to say this to you guys, but don't take it so personally. In that moment, remember that this is business. You are two people working together in a business, and there are rules and regulations of how things need to be managed within that, and that you need to act professionally and not let your anger and your frustration rule what you do or say in that moment, because it could land you with a claim or it could make the situation worse. If you are one of our clients, then you will already have a contract template from us and you will have a handbook. We would have created that contract template in line with what is actually going on in your business and how your business is, the terms and conditions of your staff. You then use that contract template to create the staff contracts, and you issue those contracts on day one of employment. They have a right on the first day of employment to a contract. If you want to change the terms and conditions of a contract, the majority of the time, you're going to have to consult. There are the rare occasions where you don't need to consult. One of them, for example, is when there are very minor changes that you are making. Let's say, for example, you're changing the date that you pay. Maybe you're paying them on the 20th of the month and you want to move that to the 28th of the month. You still need to give them notice and that kind of thing, but it's considered a minor change and you don't have to consult with them. The majority of the time, I'm going to tell you have to consult. The other time that you don't really have to consult is when you are going to improve all of their terms and conditions. So you're not improving one as a buyout for reducing another. You wouldn't expect a lot of resistance because you're giving quite a lot. And then you're sort of saying, maybe in line with that, we're also amending your notice period. And I don't expect you'll get an awful lot of pushback, but hey, there's always one. Some of the terms and conditions that are fairly standard across golf clubs. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't improve them and offer more. Of course you can, but statutory holiday, SSP only, is fairly standard across golf clubs. There is rarely extra sick pay offered. These days, I'd say maybe 50% of our clubs offer club sick pay. And when they do, it's for very short periods of time. It's maybe this 3 days, 5 days a week, 2 weeks, after maybe 2 years of service or something like that. So it within the industry, it's pretty standard. So is the holiday, for example. So is things like statutory maternity pay only, things like that. So if you are not one of our clients, it's probably best to book in a chat with me. And we'll go through the things you want to change, the things that maybe in the contract you're not feeling is right, or any concerns or questions you have. We would then do a review for you and make any changes that you need to your contract and your handbook.
If you have any of your members of staff who have a blazing row with each other, you need to tell us straight away so that we can investigate and deal with that situation. There's no point doing that a month later. I have one golf club that's come back to me. There's an issue around calling somebody a name, which is not good name, which is banter, okay? But then as we were talking about that and me saying, right, we need to do investigation meetings, turns out one of the chefs walked out without authorization after blazing around with his colleague. But they didn't ring me about that. Also, somebody was in an accident and escorted by the police to hospital, which usually means there's a concern about maybe drink driving. Then one of the chefs has said to the house manager that he's an alcoholic, but he doesn't drink at work, but he does need a drink to get to work. He's like, well, I don't really want to lose my chef. Yes, but if he's drunk in the kitchen, what's the likelihood of an accident? And then you're going to be liable. I did point out corporate manslaughter might apply. And he's like, oh, okay, maybe I do need to take it more seriously. You are allowed to do swab testing for alcohol. And we did this for a head greenkeeper in a different club. We agreed with him that we would let him back, but he would have to do a swab testing at the beginning and the end of every shift for 3 months. Then we would do it on an intermittent basis for another 3 months. And then after that, we would decide what we're going to do. And the swab testing is peanuts. It's like £1.50 per swab. And we're not looking to dismiss on the basis of this, but you do have the health and safety responsibility to make sure that they are sober when dealing with heavy machinery. And this all comes out as side issues when we're talking about the name calling, because somehow those things weren't important enough to ring. Even just one of them, like the storming out, we could have done a disciplinary, the guy would have been on a final written. I know he didn't want to lose his chef, but actually we needed to do it at the time. He now wants to circle back around and do a disciplinary process on that, but not this week, maybe in 2 weeks' time. And I'm like, no, let's just draw a line under it, because it's a month ago. It's just pointless now. As soon as something happens, ring me. Just ring me and say, this has happened, what do I do? And I will. You've kept in touch, but she can't say you're putting her under duress to clack. If she's pregnant, she's supposed to provide you with a form called a MATB1, MATB1, which confirms the expected date of the birth. I don't know how long she's been with you, but it sounds like she's been with you since the beginning of the year. So she is theoretically entitled to maternity pay in February, if we get to that stage. But it's based on, and this is my least favourite part of employment law because it's maths, it's the 8 weeks before the 15th week before the birth. You've got the date of birth, say the 1st of February, go backwards 15 weeks from the 1st of February. From that date, you then take the average weekly wage, whatever she earned in the 8 weeks before, will then decide whether she qualifies for maternity pay from you or from the government. If you're a client of ours, you've got our maternity policy, which has that in there. That's the pregnancy thing. Other thing is, if she's off sick, she gets paid in line with your sickness policy. So if she's entitled to that, she gets paid SSP. She'll earn holiday on that at the average of what she's been earning over the last, 7, 8, 9 months. And if she's doing different hours all the time, she should be paid every month using the 12.07% rule. All you need to do to keep in touch is to send her an email or a WhatsApp message every Monday and say, hope you're feeling better, looking forward to welcoming you back at work on, and then whatever the day is after the sick note. And so you've kept in touch, but she can't say you're putting her under duress to clack. And then see what happens. If she wants to still just earn SSP, we can see if we can find if there's any proof that she's doing something like working for somebody else while saying she's too sick to work for you. But I think if you do the calculations and the amount she's earning in that 8-week period, she's probably not going to qualify for maternity pay from you. She will qualify from the government, but that she has to go to the job centre to get that. So we need to do that calculation. If you've got the MATB1, you need to do that calculation quite quickly so that we can inform her of the situation. And that might then make her go, oh, well, I'm going to leave then if you're not paying this to me. Like, it's not that we're not paying it to you. It's just the rules say if it's A, we pay it. And if it's B, the government pays it. That's it. It's not our choice. It's it's what the rules are.
I've got an employee starting, a bar colleague. I'm going to give her some regular hours, but I'm also going to have her regularly doing additional hours as per the requirements of the diary. What I'm looking for from you is some advice on how to recompense her in regard of annual leave.
So how the holiday would work is for a part-time employee, they have pro rata holiday. So she will have pro rata holiday for the 12 hours. And that is her base holiday. That's what she's got based on her contractual hours. So let's say it's 100 hours a year. Then what you do is with any of the extra hours, and it's easy to do this every month when you run payroll, calculate her extra hours. So let's say this month she's done 10 extra hours. So you've got her basic hours and you're paying her for 10 hours extra. Those 10 hours extra, on them you can do 12.07% to accrue, and then you add that accrual to her annual allocation manually. You're using two different systems. You're using the basic pro rata holiday allocation for the contracted hours, and the extra hours you're calculating the accrual with it using the 12.0% method, but that holiday is being added manually to her allocation for her to use when she wants to.
I can see chaos. I can see chaos coming, to be honest. Next year, 2027, unfair dismissals, we think it's going to be 6 months. You certainly need to raise your trial period to 6 months if it isn't already, and you need to get a review process going. The review being stop, start, continue. So every week you have somebody new, the supervisor goes to them and says, right, stop doing that, stop going on your phone when you should be working, start smiling when you serve beer, and continue doing it, whatever you're doing. That is the extent of it. It gets recorded on their phone, put into AI. AI gives you the summary with the action points. That gets given to the employee, so it's really easy for the supervisor to do, so that when you get to the end of the 6 months and they're not suitable, you've got this chain of information where they were told what to do, really easy, not onerous, and you can go, yeah, come on, you've got 5 things here saying don't go on your phone, and you're still going on your phone, you're out of here, thank you. You will need that next year, because even if it is only after 6 months that you have to use a disciplinary and everything, there is no guarantee that you will just be able to say, oh, Caroline, off you go, bye-bye, under 6 months. There may well be something we need to do. So you need to get your teams used to doing these basic review things to be able to protect you. It's going to be a shock to the system anyway. If you only do it in April next year, I can see chaos. I can see chaos coming, to be honest.
It's better to get your managers into the habit, get them trained slowly but surely now, so that they are, by next year, they're already in the habit of doing this with new starters, doing those quick weekly reviews. This is like a 10-minute meeting in most cases. Having the paperwork and the paper trail saved for this, because otherwise, if you're trying to introduce this next year at the same time as the law changes, you're going to have 6 months of them forgetting or saying, I spoke to them, but no, I didn't record it. No, I didn't send an email afterwards to say what we said. If you can get them to do it now and you can iron those kinks out before April, that would be good.
Because it's also a sort of practice thing as well to see whether you've got the right supervisors in place, because if they are unwilling or unable to do that now when it's not crucial, then they're not going to be able to do it when it is crucial.
The amount of times that we see someone has got all the way up to 18 months before a manager then says we need to get rid of them, and we're like, how many times have you spoken to them about this, talked to them about this? Oh, 3 times in 18 months. And right now we're like, okay, sure, here's a letter, let them go. But realistically, what this tells us is that that is a non-existent practice. Employees are just told, stop doing that, get off your phone. You know, there isn't proper processes for things. We can see that the culture is not to deal with these things in such a regular, documented way.
and it's worthless when we come to the point of dealing with an issue.
If managers need to be performance managed because they're refusing to manage, then that's a different problem, isn't it?
I was giving a GCMA talk yesterday about the new changes coming in, and we had a difference of opinion, me and one of the attendees, and it was about, in October 2026, that employers are going to be legally liable for the actions of third parties towards their staff. From October, any member of the public who harass your employees, you are legally liable for their actions. You can be sued for their actions. Now, yes, this is absolutely scary, absolutely, but it's also the same as health and safety, that you are responsible for all people, whether they're your employees or not, who come onto site, and you have to take steps to make sure they are safe. You're not supposed to be able to prevent anything, but you are supposed to put stuff in place to minimize it and minimize the danger. It was interesting because the gentleman in question was very much, well, that's ridiculous, we can't do that. I'm like, well, you need to do work with your members to make sure they understand they're not allowed to harass people, but as a very minimum, if they do harass people, that has to be dealt with in the correct way with your disciplinary procedure, which should be up to date. And you can't go, oh, you know, Bob, he's 92, he's never going to change. It's like, no, you do not tolerate it anymore.
This law isn't just focused on prevention. It's also focused on how you deal with it when it happens. It is nearly a 50-50, to be honest. And this is the bit we already struggle with in terms of members. I always say, if this was an employee that did this to another employee, or an employee who did this to a member, you would sack them. Even if the guy who is doing the harassing is a very good employee and you've never had a complaint about him before, you've still got to deal with it properly. You can't just sweep it under the carpet because you don't want to lose him or because you can't believe that he would have done this. But because it's a member who's done it to an employee, you think a warning is okay. Really?
When health and safety started, 20, 30 years ago, it's just ridiculous. People are grown ups, they can work out themselves whether they're going to electrocute themselves or fall into a hole. We don't have to do this, we don't have to protect them. And now it's seen as standard. If you're not doing the health and safety, you're like, why are you not doing the health and safety? And it'll be the same with harassment. Why would you tolerate that behaviour to your staff, or even to other members for that matter? And it was just a very illuminating heads up that I will go work on, because I must admit, when he first said it, I'm like, I was almost like, is this a joke? You're joking, aren't you? You're sort of saying, oh, there's so many members, what are we going to do? You need to train your board of directors as same as you would any staff member on what is acceptable for sexual harassment. You need to do the online training. You need to deal with issues quickly and have sanctions.
Thanks for watching. If you want a free peace of mind call with us to discuss your policies, handbook, and any burning staff issues in your business, click the link in the description below.